I picked up some new subscribers, so I want to make sure I introduce myself to them. My name is David McCrae, and for 23 years I served as a South Dakota game warden. In the last 7, I was the assistant chief game warden for the state of South Dakota. Starting about 8 years ago, I began writing a series of books, my memoirs, and those are 5 books written collectively under the title The Forgotten Lawmen, plural, the Forgotten Lawmen series. After I completed my memoirs, I moved on to a subject matter that, well, just say it's controversial, and not just on a local level, but on a national level. And that's police abuse of power, police corruption, police reform. And I got involved with that because of my history as a law enforcement officer and what I was seeing and what I was hearing from my former profession. I'm not talking about game wardens specifically, just the profession of law enforcement. Just blew my mind. I go, what is this? The way they treat people, the way they violate rights, the system protects them almost to an officer. I mean, regardless of circumstances. I go, what is this? I was sufficiently motivated about the topic that I'd spend the next 4 years of my life and thousands of dollars to write a 2-part series called Rise of the Oathbreakers and Rise of the Oathbreakers Part 2. And Part 2 is subtitled America's Crisis of Competency in Law Enforcement. All right, DB, you've spent about a minute and a half talking about your background in law enforcement and the fact that you like to write books. But what's your message? Good question. The message is, I know what the hell I'm talking about.
All right. Let me get some gloves, because you're covered in blood. Right. You got AIDS? Come here. That says police. Can you read?
Yes.
I'm a Columbus police officer.
Yes.
When I stop you, you have to stop.
Right. You're
now failing to comply.
All right.
You're under arrest.
All right.
You need to make it to Roger on the 3. Okay.
Adonis! Are you okay?
That kid.
Most of you probably know John Bryan, the civil rights lawyer. His channel is just amazing. It's remarkable. The guy rocks. Being a civil rights lawyer, you know, he fights for the people who have been abused by the system. He holds the police accountable. And his content is always outstanding, even though we know that when we watch another one of John Bryan's videos, we're probably going to get really pissed off. Not at John Bryan, but at the police, and this video is no exception. I won't be showing the entire video because, number one, most people have already seen it, and it would be redundant and unnecessary. The second reason is I simply don't have to show all of it. I want to show enough of how this 14-year-old kid from Columbus, Ohio was abused by the police for doing nothing more than saying F the police as he walked by. Again, I only want to show enough of the video where folks can get a sense of what the police did to this 14-year-old kid. And then I want to segue into something that John Bryan says at the end of his video.
This police officer was just fired based on this footage that was just released. This happened after a group of teenagers in Columbus, Ohio, walked past a police car. One of them said, F the police, and then they ran away. The officers pursued on foot. But didn't they have a constitutional right to say that? More on that later. This is what happened when Officer Bevers caught up with this 14-year-old boy.
You move, I will break your face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You understand me?
Yes, I understand. It wasn't that serious, bro.
It is now.
Dang, you didn't have to do my face like that. All right.
So after this incident happened, Officer Bever, this is his body cam footage, and he was fired, filled out a use of force report. A sergeant saw the use of force report, and he thought it was terrible. He showed it to another sergeant. Both sergeants showed it to their commander. After the commander watched this body cam footage, the commander told the sergeants, fire this guy, Officer Bever, immediately. I think this is an example of what police departments should be doing, and that is policing their own. You see, where there was this requirement that a use of force report had to be turned in, and then once it was, somebody who was a supervisor, a sergeant, looked at the footage. He was concerned, showed it to another supervisor. He was concerned, and they showed it to their boss. This guy was fired. It didn't take a YouTube video, didn't take TV news media, it didn't take a lawsuit. They did it themselves, and that's the way it should be done. What is the legitimate reason for any police officer to come to this guy's defense. It always blows my mind that it seems like police officers have this compulsion to defend their own across the country, even when they get nothing out of it. It's like, what? Why do you do that?
I can answer that question for Mr. Bryan. Maybe I will in a different video, but it's this point on that I want folks to pay special attention to. This is interesting.
Then you have citizens around the country who will want to say, well, let's see the rest of the footage. Let's hear the rest of the story. I mean, what is the rest of the story here? Well, if police tell you to do something, if they give you an order, you do it. And if you don't do it, I'm fine with you being executed, whatever. There are people who think that way. Or that there are people who think that if you say F the police should be able to run you down and treat you in this manner.
From Rise of the Oathbreakers Part 2, page 58. Like everything else in life, however, there are exceptions to the general rule. In this case, it is not uncommon to hear the term bootlegger used instead of sheep. It is a less than flattering descriptor of diehard police defenders, the men and women who are critical, not so much of the police, but of those who are critical of the police instead. The uninformed public's role becomes even more troubling by their propensity to overlook or explain away the latest report of bad police behavior. Whoever it was the police beat up or killed most recently must have had it coming. Therefore, anyone who professes to the contrary is espousing anti-police rhetoric. John Bryan, I know just what you're talking about. Why? Because I know what the hell I'm talking about.